My name is Karen Derringer, and I'm the Director of the Office of Assessment and Authorization in Cyber Operations at the U.S. Department of State. I'm pleased to be here to present a case study on how the State Department modernized its cybersecurity compliance lifecycle and turned a failing system authorization process into an innovative and forward-thinking program. I'd like to acknowledge my ANA team members and other state colleagues who are here in the audience and have been an integral part of our modernization journey. The State Department is a global provider of IT. We serve over 50 federal agencies, NGOs, and other partners around the world. We have 100,000 customers, foreign service and civil service direct hires, contractors, locally employed staff, and other federal partners. We're at 277 posts, consulates, and embassies, and we're in 191 countries. On the FISMA side, the department has 432 IT systems that must obtain and maintain an authorization to operate. 10 of these systems are enterprise processing environments, universally available platforms such as MS Azure, Office 365, Google Suite, ServiceNow, our on-prem data center, to name a few. The remaining approximately 390 systems are bureau-operated and mission-specific to that bureau or office. And we operate in over 500 CONUS locations. Our broad IT footprint makes protecting our systems and data even more challenging. My office's primary responsibility is to ensure the systems have gone through the rigorous authorization process, to report and track on the management and mitigation of any outstanding risk, and support reauthorization as needed. We've put several structures in place in order to provide not just the oversight, but the day-to-day help that is needed by system owners to protect their systems and ensure the requisite compliance. The Department of State's authorization status is depicted here. You can see the rather dramatic climb we've taken since 2018, when our system authorization rates, if you turn them into grades, was a D for high-impact systems and an F for moderate impact systems. You can also see that it wasn't a straight up trajectory. The ups and downs in this chart illustrate the ups and downs we experienced along the way. In 2008, our ATO process was paper-based. All the documents that are produced from the ATO process, the SSP, the SAP, the SAR, the PIA, the CP test, were all stored in file folders. Our POEMs were in an Access database. As I mentioned previously, our system authorization rates were an F and D in 2008. Today, they are a B and an A-. We still have some ways to go to get to 100%, but it's a massive improvement over where we were a few years ago. So how did we go from an F and a D to a B and an A today? I'm going to share some strategies that we employed to get us back on track and address our technical debt. Modernizing a program, in my experience, has been dirty, exhausting, stressful, rewarding, and exhilarating all at the same time. There were ups and downs all along the way, so I don't want to give the impression that it was easy or painless. Today, I'm going to frame the modernization effort within the confines of the Golden Triangle. You may have heard about the Golden Triangle or used it yourself in some capacity. The Golden Triangle, known as People, Process, Technology, is a framework introduced in the 1960s by Harold Levitt, who was a business management expert. He wrote this paper called Applied Organization Change in Industry, decades ago. And while the Golden Triangle has morphed from his original creation, the approach is still widely used and written about today. Many different metaphors have been used to describe it. The three-legged chair, where all three legs are needed to keep it upright. The way I'm using it is the equilateral triangle, with the sides named after each component. The point of this framework is that each element is needed to facilitate a successful modernization, or whatever you're doing, whether it's digital transformation, an office initiative, a program, No matter how you choose to think about it, the main concept is finding the balance of each element to create a strong foundation for transformation. Arguably, the most important piece of the equation is people. None of the other components happen without people. People are the ones who design the process and use the technology. People add value more so than any other component because even the most advanced technologies and processes would have no guiding purpose without people, the vision, or the strategy. Automation of tasks that were done before manually allows people to take a more strategic role, which is exactly where we're trying to go. We want to be able to spend more time looking at the data and analytics in order to make better, more informed decisions. The first thing that I had to address was the culture, both internally and externally. One of the first things I noticed was how overwhelmed we were with the sheer number of systems that needed an authorization. How did we triage this situation? In fact, that's what we did, and it helped to prioritize what needed to go first. We also resource leveled work so that it was apportioned more evenly across the staff. From an external perspective, system owners had similar struggles. They were managing systems that had been unauthorized or never authorized and were dealing with years of accumulated technical debt. We had to gain the trust of our Bureau partners because there was so much dissatisfaction with the ATO process, how inconsistent it was, how long it took, etc. We had a lot of people hiding in the shadows with their systems because they didn't want to do the ATO process. And who could blame them? So one of the ways we built trust was to just be transparent. We acknowledged to ourselves and to our partners what was not working. We identified partners internally and externally who were eager to help us make change. We hired and put our trust in out-of-the-box thinkers. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to find visionaries, allow them to challenge the status quo, and give them the cover that's needed to help turn that corner. We set expectations that it was going to be hard and take time. And of course, we monitored ourselves and took course corrections when needed. One of our early approaches was called the Integrated Project Team. This statement sums it up well. All RMF roles in a room together. This was before the global pandemic, of course. To kickstart our broken ATO process, we got all personnel together in a conference room. The ISSO, the AODR, the system owner SMEs, and the assessor, while the assessor went through each NIST security control to ask questions and ideally pass or fail the control right then and there. Depending upon the complexity of the system, we spent 5 to 10 days together in that conference room going through 1,000 controls. We got success from that approach in the form of more authorized systems. It allowed us to build back trust. And eventually, we were able to mature out of the ITP approach. Another technique we employed was system owner support, aptly named SOS. SOS is in place today and is literally among the top critical success factors for getting systems authorized. Our SOS team serves as the NIST and RMF experts to help system owners prepare their ATO documentation for an assessment. SOS has cut down on rework and decreased the time it takes to get through the RMF lifecycle. The second part of the golden triangle is process. The process is a key part of the triangle because without process, people can be left in the dark. A good process will get people to use the technology and provide a purpose. There is a saying that goes, putting together a new technology and an old process will only get you a very expensive old process. It is important to evaluate your existing processes when looking into new technologies, figure out what can be replaced, and what new processes are needed in order to get the most return on investment. We had an ATO process that definitely needed an overhaul, so we developed a mindset of continual improvement. We rationalized the entire RMF lifecycle multiple times. We got comfortable failing and we got comfortable trying new things. A highly successful strategy we employed was projectizing the ATO process. If you've ever studied the RMF lifecycle, it is a complex project lifecycle. So we stood up a PMO to manage all 432 systems through that RMF lifecycle. We chartered our PMO, we created a work breakdown structure and defined durations for each step, and we tracked each system's progress through the RMF in Microsoft Schedule. Just organizing this work required a lot of effort, but the payback was worth it. By assigning responsibility to each task in the schedule and holding that person or people accountable to the timeline helped keep ATOs on track and completed within the expected time. Another process we put into place is called ARMOR. ARMOR was inspired by the U.S. Air Force A4 Logistics Unit's Dirty 36 approach. Dirty 36 was a strategy by the U.S. Air Force A4 to get their systems into the fold, so to speak. The idea was to bring them into authorization status with a small set of important controls and put them into ongoing authorization, and then get the rest of the controls ATO'd at a later date. We would never have learned about the Dirty 36 if it wasn't for my Gartner rep, Brian Parker, who connected me with the U.S. Air Force back in 2019. Thank you to Brian for this introduction and for Brian's unwavering support over the last 5 years. Today, ARMOR controls are the NIST controls that the State Department has deemed most critical to be in place. With the release of the FedRAMP threat-based methodology, which includes the MITRE ATT&CK framework, we reevaluated our ARMOR controls to take into account the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We used recommended protection value cutoff of 41 or higher to select our ARMOR control baseline, and we keep iterating on that control baseline as the threat landscape changes. According to the FedRAMP TBM model, having PV controls of 41 or higher can protect against 80% of the cyber threats that are out there. ARMOR controls are explicitly marked in our GRC, and when our AODRs make risk recommendations to the authorizing official, ARMOR findings or POEMs are explicitly called out. We are using ARMOR for an accelerated ATO path and for our ongoing authorization program. Our Common Control Program was stood up in 2017, and we have identified, documented, and assessed common controls for our on-prem network, 25 cloud service providers, and some Bureau common controls. Identifying what can be inherited decreases the work for system owners and decreases the time to getting an ATO. The final aspect of the Golden Triangle is technology. Bright and shiny new technology often gets the most attention, but it's important to remember that as good as technology is, tech in and of itself will not solve all your problems without the right people using it, along with the right processes. So to modernize our cybersecurity compliance program, we implemented an AI-capable GRC. We conducted human-centered design throughout 2022 to develop the workflow and the user interface design. We migrated data and went live on December 1 and are now fully in that GRC, actively getting systems authorized. One thing on our wish list was for our cybersecurity compliance program to be interoperable with other key systems at the department. We needed to not only be able to put data in the GRC, but we needed to be able to get data out, to share it, to query it, to cross-correlate information inside and outside of the tool. With our GRC, we are creating bidirectional data feeds with other key cybersecurity and compliance-oriented data sources. This will lay the groundwork for real-time or near real-time information for better decision-making and awareness. We are doing a proof of concept for continuous monitoring and ongoing authorization using AI anomaly. We are testing the consumption and analysis of millions of logs. This proof of concept is still underway, but the idea is to use this feature as an enabler of ongoing authorization. There is an AI confidence score in the GRC, which gives a percentage grade for each control implementation statement that is authored. This is a burn-down chart of the control authoring and the confidence score in the top right. This confidence score is intended to help ISSOs who are describing their implementations by telling them simply whether it's good enough to pass an independent assessment. Finally, a broader vision is to reimagine the entire cybersecurity lifecycle to include AI in the acquisition process to identify IT duplication and supply chain risk before a purchase is made. Okay, I didn't get to preface that. That's our new GRC, if anyone hadn't figured that out. Uh-oh. Okay. All right. A key takeaway. I'm wrapping up now. We're a little early. A key takeaway to this presentation is that digital modernization and program change is a multi-year effort that perhaps, in my opinion, requires endurance and patience above all. I hope that framing state's experience through the Golden Triangle has helped illuminate the approach and the strategies that we employed. Winston Churchill summarizes it best: success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. Thank you all so much.